Tiffany Solomon. I'm a senior English major, and today I'm going to be discussing the film Paid in Full and the journey that it provides to the American dream. Because the American dream has been consistently denied to black men throughout history, I thought it would be interesting to look at the way this film portrays capitalism and economic prosperity and how that makes the film so appealing to inner city audiences. Instead of critiquing capitalism, the film Paid in Full depicts the American dream as a goal that is only accessible by affirming neoliberal culture's standards of morality and civilly responsible citizens. So, what is neoliberalism? According to most historians and economists, the end of the Vietnam War brought a surge of economic policy that sought to transfuse capitalism into the functions of everyday life, making it market-based. The ideology has been termed neoliberalism. Lawrence Grossberg describes neoliberalism, saying that it argues that all human activities and spaces can and should be absorbed into economic systems. Laurie Ouellette simplifies this definition by stating that neoliberalism is the troubling worldview that promotes the free market as the best way to organize every dimension of social life. Set in 1986, Paid in Full takes place during the same time as neoliberalism begins to emerge in America. Our characters are living in an inner city Harlem neighborhood and are members of what Nicholas Rose would describe as an exclusionary community. For the purpose of this presentation, I will refer to it as an excluded community. He describes the inhabitants of these communities as those people who were dependent on the state, those people who were mentally and physically ill, and those people who were criminals. In his description of criminals, he implies that these citizens weren't irresponsible or dependent. They merely didn't adhere to the goals of morality and civility. The neoliberal American dream applies that those who work hard will get ahead, therefore also implying that if you are not getting ahead, then you are not working hard. The logic is obviously faulty. Working hard does not guarantee that you will get ahead. Instead, working hard guarantees that you will remain productive and labor producing, which are essential tenets to capitalism. For those who are working hard and not getting ahead, neoliberalism implies that they are not working hard enough, or they're just simply not working hard at all. This ties directly into what has become the mythology of the American dream that we've come to understand in 21st century America. And I'm just going to show you all the actual trailer for the film so you can get a little bit of context if you're not familiar with it.
You know it's hot on the streets, man. What you doing, man? What's that? This is the best product. This is the wave of the future. Yeah, I was tripping into a whole lot of money. What's going on, baby? Thinking of last. I'm not gonna let that slide. I'm here with it. So I take it to the pocket on my money. I'm still gonna be the king. Be the king. So I start my mission, leave my residence, thinking how could I get some better presidents? I need money. Real man takes care of his family.
So, Paid in Full encourages us to reconsider the classification of excluded communities and offers us a new structural interpretation of neoliberalism through what Lester Spence describes as the crack governmentality. Within this space, there's a shift to identify the hustler Ace as an entrepreneur and an ideal neoliberal businessman. The hustler is described as one who is always working, always reading the needs of his consumers, and always producing to meet these needs or generate them. Ace goes out of his way to meet the needs of his consumer when he describes how he sold cocaine wholesale. Throughout the film, he grows from hustler aspirations into hopes of becoming a legitimate businessman. And he does this in a way that shows, it implies to us that we should believe that this is an inherently less dangerous and inherently more moral way of making money. The ideological structure that Ace works end perpetuates capitalism and also displays how neoliberalist goal of making capitalism the model for all systems of labor and wages matriculates even into criminal operations. Mitch, the baller, shows a discipline and a desire to improve himself through human capital and the willingness to compete, as noted by Spence. For Mitch, the hustle is about more than the money, but instead the personal fulfillment he gets from seeing capitalism work. When Mitch dies tragically in the film, the audience is disheartened at the loss of the man who was so good at what he does. However, they miss the point. The reason that he dies is because he can't commit himself to making money in a civil or moral manner. Rico's a little bit of a different character. He's the bad man that Spence describes, the individual willing to commit acts of violence, often in self-defense in an effort to retaliate or in response to disrespect, and willing to commit a crime for the purpose of making money. Rico's use of violence extends beyond justification when he murders his presumed best friend, Mitch. And it also displays an unrelenting need for power. When Rico kills Mitch, we learn that he lacks a moral concern for others, even those who are close to him. Rico does not desire to be a part of the moral community because money is more important to him. Calvin and Ice are two other minor characters in the film who present themselves as antagonists much in the way that Rico does. After being released from prison and wanting to reclaim his spot at the top of Ace's drug empire, Calvin refuses to take responsibility for his actions, and therefore allows himself to be labeled as someone who should be excluded from even the crack governmentality. Ice also lacks moral concern for others. The film implies that not only does Ice lack moral concern for others, but he's also willing to go to drastic measures to avoid doing work. Work and taking responsibility for your actions are essential to the American dream and economic prosperity in the neoliberal culture. Ice, Calvin, and Rico present the antithesis of what is at the heart of the American dream, hard work paying off. Therefore, they become the villains of the film. The tagline displayed on posters for Paid in Full led me to think that by the end of the film, I would be able to see an alternative route to fulfilling the American dream, particularly a route more fitting for young black men. But that is not what the film offers. Instead, after the death of Mitch and Calvin and the incarceration of Ice and Rico, we walk away with the idea that neoliberal goals for society should lie at the moral compass of all. This is troubling because it offers no alternative to a better way of life for members of the excluded black communities, besides to fit in with standards already set in place for moral and civil communities. The film depicts black life in poverty and offers no real critical analysis of why these communities are excluded in a neoliberal governmentality in the first place, or why those who don't fit the moral and civil standards of neoliberal governmentality are considered unethical.